What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for August 18th, 2023. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. For the second straight week, another great edition of SmackDown. This episode was all about the Edge 25th anniversary, which was technically, I think, back in June when he debuted in WWE. But they celebrated on Friday night in Toronto, Edge's hometown. A great show. No Bloodline on the show at all. We did hear and see Paul Heyman backstage, and that was about it. He just mentioned that Jimmy Uso will be back next week. That kind of indicates Roman Reigns will not be back anytime soon. He will not be defending a Payback. The Bloodline drama kind of feels like it's on hiatus right now with Jey Uso quitting, which could very well lead to Jey and Jimmy at Payback, but I just feel like Jey quitting and then coming back for a Payback match with his brother would be weird. It sounds like to me they're holding off on that, as I said last week, until WrestleMania, or at least closer to like the Royal Rumble, or maybe even Survivor Series. But either way, it's not like they're doing it at Payback, unless they, again, throw us a curveball and Jay's back next week. Then why quit in the first place? I'm not exactly sure. But the Bloodline stuff did take the back seat this week, and it was all about Edge. It ended up being a really, really good show. Video packages, vignettes, everything, interviews with WWE superstars backstage talking about the importance of the Rated R Superstar. Coming into the show, it was a question, and we still don't know for sure. Will Edge wrestle in WWE again after this? Is his contract actually up? We just know, according to what he said, assuming he was telling the truth, that this was the final match in Edge's contract. Did we just witness Edge's final match ever in any wrestling ring? Or does he leave WWE and go to AEW? Or does he wrestle again in WWE, and this wasn't it after all? This was just his swan song for Toronto. I was convinced that this was it for him when the show was over. After everything they did to honor this man on this show, I was convinced that this might be it. But we'll talk more about that as we get into the main event a little bit later on as he took on Sheamus. What opened the show was the Grayson Waller Effect, obviously hosted by Grayson Waller, with the LWO, Santos, Escobar, and the new United States champion, Rey Mysterio. I thought Waller did a nice job of attempting to tease tension between Escobar and Rey, mentioning that Escobar was the number one contender up until Rey, not beat him, but Rey had to take the title shot because Escobar got hurt. So Rey swooped in there, became champion. Waller said that his glory days were over and whatnot, and, trying to drive a wedge between the two. It doesn't sound like it's going to happen soon, but I really hope this was intended to plant the seeds for exactly that, for tension between the two, for Escobar to turn heel at some point, attack Rey Mysterio, and claim just that Rey took his title shot, and that he should be the United States champion instead. Hopefully that is coming at some point. In the meantime, we're getting a rematch between Austin Theory and Rey Mysterio over the United States Championship. That came about after Austin Theory came out on the Grayson Waller Effect, interrupting the LWO, saying that he was the greatest United States champion of all time. I almost choked on my own laughter when I heard him say that, as everyone else did, I'm sure. And then he was interrupted by L.A. Knight. Great reaction here for L.A. Knight. Was not expecting to see him. At least I was expecting to see him on the show because he wasn't on Raw this week. Getting a great reaction here. I just didn't know it would come in this segment where he would come out. He mentioned that, listen, he's had his eyes on gold for a while now. He wants a shot at the United States Championship, and maybe he can earn it by beating Theory in an impromptu match on the show. Adam Pearce comes out, makes the match official. Theory and Knight was a good match. The funny thing was that the four guys that are most similar to one another were all in the same vicinity within the span of a matter of minutes. So Theory and Knight had their match. Waller was just in the ring before that, and Theory and Waller are almost the exact same character. And then The Miz came out to watch the match from commentary and do commentary for the match. So you have Knight, Miz, Theory, and Waller. The only other person you could have used out there who isn't as generic as some of these other guys is Logan Paul. That's why I put Logan Paul, Theory, and Knight all in one faction on my SmackDown show in Universe Mode in WWE 2K23, because they all remind me of the same person. You throw Dolph in there, they would all kind of just be the same person, but it was kind of funny seeing them in the same vicinity within a matter of minutes. But anyway, this was a good match. Theory ended up going over following a distraction from Miz at ringside, beating Knight to become the number one contender to the United States Championship. They didn't say when the match was going to happen. It could be saved for Payback. I don't know. The first match happened on SmackDown. Theory and Rey to me doesn't really feel like a pay-per-view match. I mean, it would be funny if after all this time, Theory finally ends up retaining or defending the championship on a pay-per-view, and he's no longer champion. He did defend at the Backlash pay-per-view back in May, but he didn't defend it Night of Champions, he didn't defend at Money in the Bank or SummerSlam, so it would be funny if they waited all this time to put the guy on pay-per-view in a title match, and it was in a fucking match where he's the challenger and not the champion. But that was what the segment accomplished. We had women's tag team action after that. Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair taking up and beating the duo of Damage Control's Bayley and the WWE Women's Champion, IYO SKY. Dakota Kai once again in their corner here. She did not get physical at all. She made it pretty clear on her Twitch or whatever earlier this week that you may be seeing her back going forward. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they always planned on her being back for SummerSlam. Maybe they wanted to wait until IYO became champion. I don't know. It seemed like they liked the appearance and liked the idea of IYO being at SummerSlam, or not IYO, but Dakota Kai being at SummerSlam, and they were thinking, you know what? She's not that hurt. She can walk around, so why not bring her to work anyway? And they have. But Dakota did make it clear online that, listen, she is many months away from being cleared, probably under 6, so we will not see her back in the ring until at least 2024. But it sounds like she might be around for the foreseeable future, which is cool. In the corner of IYO and Bayley for their matches, which I like a lot. I thought this was a really good match. They got plenty of time here. There was one weird moment in the match. There was one really awkward moment when Charlotte had to go do the hot tag to Bianca. I don't think this was Charlotte's fault. IYO had to go over and knock off Bianca off the apron and then go tag in Bayley. And then Charlotte had to wait until she did so. So I think that was more of an IYO issue than it was a Charlotte issue. People love to blame Charlotte. But otherwise, this was a really, really good match. They got some time. We did not see Shotzi here. Shotzi is the one feuding with Bayley right now, and to an extent, IYO SKY. We did not see Shotzi, who I completely forgot about. She was on the show last week with, like, spiked hair, or maybe that was on the SmackDown Lowdown. But it wasn't in this segment, though. They came up short, despite having a numbers advantage with Dakota Kai at ringside. Bianca and Charlotte proving to be a cohesive unit, at least for this show, and picking up the victory. So we'll see where that goes. And Triple H has a tendency to tease stories and then go back on them. And then go back to it and then, kind of reel it back a little bit. We're seeing that here with all 4 of these women. Tension was teased weeks ago between Bianca and Charlotte as well as Bayley and IYO. But that was not on display here. They're obviously going to go back to both stories at some point. I don't know what the next women's championship match is going to be for these 4 women. If IYO's going to defend against Bianca or in a triple threat with Charlotte. Asuka was not on this episode, so I'm not exactly sure what's next. But Bianca did pick up the win for her team here by pinning Bayley. We had the Street Profits in action for the first time since linking up with Bobby Lashley, taking on and beating the OCs Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. Kind of a nothing match. It was more about showcasing the new in-ring intensity of the Street Profits, and a decent match while it lasted. The OC are just kind of fucking there at this point, so it was fun. They lost to the Profits in pretty decisive fashion. And that was it. Really not much more to it. It is worth noting that the Profits did not have new music. They did not have new attire. They had cool attire, and I loved the music, but nothing really about that was different. They were doing their usual mannerisms when they came out. And during the match, again, they were more serious and they were more intense, which was good to see, and we'll see where that goes. Bobby did come out with them afterward, posing with the duo. And you would think that they're supposed to be heels because, they beat up 2 babyface teams on SmackDown 2 weeks ago, and they beat the OC here, who were supposed to be a babyface team, at least I think. And that was it. You would think, again, they would be a heel team after doing all that. They were received by this crowd, by this Toronto crowd, as babyfaces, as was Bobby when it came out. They haven't really done anything overly heelish as far as cutting a promo on the crowd or, attacking a beloved babyface or a beloved tag team. We haven't seen that yet. The Brawling Brutes are over as babyfaces, but people were just happy to see the Profits back in the ring a couple of weeks ago, and they attacked them in suits, and they just looked fucking awesome. So we'll see where this goes. And then just like that, we were at the main event. Again, they gave this thing plenty of time. The only issue with the presentation of this thing, they put it in the main event. It had the great crowd. They had the vignettes and the video package and everything. Kind of recapping Edge's career and whatnot of 25 years in WWE. The only thing this match was missing was, I almost said Tony Schiavone, Tony Chimmel as the ring announcer for this matchup. I don't know when the last time we would have heard Tony Chimmel in WWE was. probably 5 to 7 years ago. I mean, he was working with WWE for a while and doing some announcing, but we haven't heard him announce in WWE in quite a long time. It would have been nice that they brought him in to do one last introduction for Edge. They did have Charles Robinson as the referee, who famously refereed Edge versus The Undertaker from WrestleMania 24, and they had, a classic main event on that show, with Robinson running towards the ring to make the count for Taker when he pinned Edge for the World Heavyweight Championship, or when Edge pinned Taker, rather, and Taker kicked out. Just that great moment. But anyway, a really, really good match here between Edge and Sheamus. Despite nothing being in the line and both guys being baby faces, they did boost Sheamus more than Edge. I mean, obviously they wanted Edge to win, but he got a rock star reaction when he came out. He was clearly emotional. Beth and the kids in the front row, and probably some of Edge's other, family and friends and whatnot. This was awesome. This was fantastic. Edge ended up winning clean. I thought there was a shot Sheamus could win here, and Edge could put over one more person on the way out. It probably would have been a bummer ending, though, so I could see why they didn't do that. Edge did win, as he has most of his matches in WWE since coming back a few years ago. And that was it. They went off the air pretty quickly. They probably got a little too much time here, and they had to wrap it up immediately because the news comes on at 9:57 Eastern Time, and they can't go overtime. So Edge wins, and that was it. And they didn't really show anything else afterward. We did see that clip going around after the show where Edge said, he kind of made it sound like this is the last time you're going to see me, but he was addressing the Toronto audience when he said that. And it's interesting that he said that, because he said he doesn't think he'll be able to make it around for the next time that they're in Toronto. And that's interesting because, he just wrestled in Montreal earlier this year at Elimination Chamber. He wrestled in Toronto almost exactly a year ago, and he faced Damian Priest in the main event of Raw almost exactly 1 year ago. And he said on both occasions that he would love to be in Canada again competing. He did here, and so that might be it, because WWE, they don't often go to Canada, but they go there often enough, at least once or twice a year, to where he doesn't think that if he's going to compete in front of that crowd again, in 6 months from now or a year from now, this might indeed be it. I feel like he wouldn't say that unless this was it. And honestly, the way they treated this man on this show, I'm not sure if he should wrestle another match. I mean, some of Edge's matches have not been the greatest since coming back. I've overly enjoyed this run for Edge, because we never thought we would even get it. As the man himself has said, that this is kind of just bonus time, where he comes back and is able to retire on his terms, have matches he's always wanted to have, face people he's never faced before, including Sheamus, from their first run to now. It is, quite fitting that Sheamus was the one who brought him back into wrestling by kind of making him realize through that episode of Celtic Warrior Workouts that he can wrestle again. And then, back on this show, he has his final match, possibly, with Sheamus. Again, just between the crowd reaction, the way they treated this whole occasion, they did everything perfectly. I'm not honestly really sure what could top this, unless it's like a prominent storyline heading into WrestleMania. Maybe he makes a couple more appearances and he signs on for a few more matches. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if he's willing to sign another contract. He did say literally 1 year ago on Raw, not on Raw itself, but after Raw in Toronto, I would love to retire in Toronto a year from now. And SummerSlam was not in Toronto, but they were in Toronto for SmackDown. And he may have gotten his wish. His family was there. And again, they kind of gave him the treatment like this was it, which I'm not really sure why he wouldn't mention that in his promo last week. And he even said in the promo after this show that he's not really sure what his future holds. He's obviously not going to make a decision right now. There is a difference, as people have mentioned, between his contract being up and then this being the final match on his contract. For example, Goldberg had his final match in his contract at Elimination Chamber last year, but his contract wasn't actually up until like a while later. Maybe until earlier this year even. So it could be a few more months before he's done. It might be done as it is. We don't know. For people wondering, can he wrap it up here and then go to AEW as soon as All In next weekend? I don't think so. You can't, completely write out that possibility. I don't know. I've heard rumblings for a while, not from a lot of people, but from a few credible people that would matter and that would know, that Edge could be leaving to go to AEW to have one more run with Christian. I know that was important to him. Christian went to AEW a few years ago. It just didn't work out. They could have it there. The Hardys are there. I'm not really sure we need another Edge and Christian versus Hardys matchup. Like, that sounds cool and all, but, Jeff and Matt, I guess, are wrestling on the regular now in AEW. Christian wrestles better than any of them at this point. So I guess it is a possibility. Edge would be a massive babyface over there, as he has been in WWE. And Christian's just such a great fucking heel right now, to the point where I don't really see that happening. Tony Khan can think of something on the fly where Luchasaurus attacks Christian, Edge makes the save. I don't know. I just don't really think it's necessary. I'm not like a WWE homer here saying, oh, Edge has to retire in WWE. I mean, not necessarily, because I remember 3 years ago when he first came back to wrestling, he entertained an offer from AEW, at least because they were going to let him wrestle. And then when he made that courtesy call to Vince to let him know, Vince was like, no, you need to wrestle and retire here, which is why he went to WWE instead. But he was very close. He was very close to going to AEW 3.5 years ago. And then before Sting came in and was like a part-timer for AEW, wrestling on some of the pay-per-views and on Dynamite, that could have been Edge. Edge has wrestled on TV, so it's not a stretch to say that he wouldn't have wrestled on TV. He probably would have in AEW as well and had a very similar great run. Personally, I'm glad he came back to WWE, had his run here, rekindled some rivalries, had some moments at SummerSlam and the Royal Rumble, obviously, multiple times, and WrestleMania, coming back to the Gangrel music a couple of times, mixing it up with certain people, competing for championships, headline WrestleMania. The list goes on and on. He had a Hell in a Cell match. Actually, 2 of them. Beat Balor this year and beat Rollins a few years ago. He's had like every match that he needs to have and whatnot. It really does feel like he put the final, cherry on top of his career in Friday Night. Going to AEW for the first time with Christian, that's not an awful idea at all, really. I mean, it would be cool to see them back together. Could it be a one-off? Yeah. I mean, they showed Christian a lot in the video packages when they were recapping his career on the show. We didn't hear from Christian because he's currently in AEW, and we've heard from people in AEW before, but I don't know if they're on the best of terms right now. That happened under Vince's watch, shockingly enough, before Vince, lost power last year. One of his final acts was incorporating comments from Daniel Bryan and Big Show and Jericho, all of whom are AEW stars, and putting those comments during a John Cena tribute package on his own 20th anniversary show. We didn't see that here. I honestly do not think, in my own opinion, that we've seen the last of Edge in the ring. I don't. I also don't think he's going to AEW either, but I've been wrong before. It's very possible that does happen. We see him next weekend. I think that'd be pretty quick. But listen, it happened with Adam Cole a couple of years ago where he had his final match at not the same circumstance. They actually extended his contract so he could work that TakeOver show, which he did not have to do. He wanted to do that as a courtesy to Kyle O'Reilly, who also ended up leaving anyway. For that TakeOver 36 show, he worked that. His contract was indeed over by the end of the week. His contract expired that weekend, I think, or the following week. And then he ended up in AEW like a week after that. The week after that, he was in AEW in Chicago. So, again, I don't think that's going to happen with Edge. Anything's possible. I do think he will wrestle again in WWE. But at the same time, honestly, if he doesn't, with the way they treated this thing, if this was indeed his swan song in WWE, this was a fucking amazing way to go out. With the way they booked him as a rock star in his hometown, the video package treatment, his family at ringside, the opponent, the match. It was a great match. They had a lot of great near falls and whatnot. Sheamus kicking out of the spear at one point. Edge kicking out of the bro kick, which not a lot of people do. This was great, and I'm not sure if it gets any better than this. I know it's on SmackDown. It's not a pay-per-view. He doesn't put over someone on his way out, but that doesn't always need to be the case. I thought this was really good stuff, and we'll see what happens with Edge from here. I don't think he's done, but again, I could be wrong, and he is indeed done, and we never see him wrestle again. But time will tell. I'm excited to see what the future holds for the Rated R Superstar. Again, like I said, his run's been great, and I would love to see more of it, or at least WWE make more of an attempt to make the last couple of months matter, because he wasn't on TV up until now. I mean, he was at MSG a month ago, but beyond that, we really haven't seen him since WrestleMania. He was on another SmackDown match back in May. He hasn't wrestled on pay-per-view since Mania, which I guess is a nice way to go out, but I'm just thinking it would have been nice if they utilized Edge for the last couple of months of his run by putting him in an actual storyline with someone that lasted more than a week beyond Sheamus. I don't know. We'll see where they go from here. This was SmackDown for the August 18th, 2023 episode, my review of it anyway. A great show. Thoroughly enjoyed it and looking forward to next week and seeing what they do going forward. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. I'm Graham G. Matthews. New SmackDown review probably coming possibly coming at some point next week. I'll be busy next week and I'll be away, so I'm not exactly sure if I'll have it up next weekend. If it is up next weekend, it may not be up on Saturday, so just keep an eye out. I'm not exactly sure. And yeah, have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.